If you're fixing the V8 swap of BMW, specifically the E chassis series, you got a few options, especially when trying to first start your build and kind of plan out. Maybe you already have a car, or maybe you're going to go looking for a car and you want to kind of know what's best to get. Try to go over that in this video, give some tips and pointers about maybe what I would have did from the get-go. So E90, E91, E92, E82, E88, all of these cars are going to be the ones to swap. E90 being a 4-door, the E91, which is the wagon version of the E90. You have the E92, which is a 2-door. And then you have the 1 Series, which is an E82, and the 1 Series convertible, which is a E88. All of these chassis, it doesn't matter which one. We can swap them all. They're all almost exactly the same. There are a couple of differences between the pre-LCI, the early models, and the LCI models, the late models. But most of that difference just lies in the wiring. So that's really not a big deal. All of that is covered on the LSE90 swap page. So you can get an older car or a newer car. It really isn't going to make any difference. As far as which chassis you're going to go with, it's completely personal preference. I'm partial to the 4-door cars, E90s, so they're also super plentiful. I don't really like pre-LCI E90s. I think if you were going to swap an E90, I think it's best to get an LCI. E92s are awesome. If you can swing a 2-door, you don't need to take the family out and about. The E92 2-door is definitely a sick option. They look awesome. Kind of the cream of the crop for me is an E91 Wagon. So they're a little bit harder to find and a bit more expensive too for clean ones. You can also swap any 1 Series, as most of you on this channel probably have seen. This is the 1 Series that I swapped. This started out as a 128, and these are super plentiful to find as well. You can also find blown up 135s fairly cheap and very common as well. So you can find these cars ranging from $1,000 for ones that are blown up, and a 128 that's blown up, to maybe $3,000 or $4,000 for a 135 that's blown up. Or if you're bougie and want to buy like a $10,000, $12,000 135 that's like mint condition and swap it, that's completely up to you. But this chassis as a general is an awesome platform to swap. It's the same thing as an E90, basically just 2-door form, smaller, shorter wheelbase, but shares a lot of the same components. Handles really, really well, drives phenomenal. Maybe just slightly cheaper feel than a 3 Series. I would say that driving a 3 Series does kind of feel a little bit more luxury-esque as compared to a 1 Series. The 1 Series is definitely a little bit more raw. The interior quality isn't quite the same as an E90. So if you like a little bit more comfortability, I would probably go for an E90 or an E92 or an E91. But if you're into just like sporty vibes, 1 Series is kind of where it's at. Some things to touch on though between 128s and 135s if you're kind of choosing between the two. Obviously 128s are going to be a little bit cheaper and easier to find to pick up. But a 135 really is a much better starting point because of the suspension mainly. So if you buy a 135, it's already going to have a really decent set of brakes on it. The 135 6-piston calipers, because the 128 you're going to end up swapping everything off of. The brakes suck. They're kind of inadequate for like an LS swap with a bunch more power in the car. So you're going to want to upgrade the brakes immediately. The 128s come with a smaller diameter wheel bearing in the back, so they have a much smaller hub. So you're not going to be able to run 335, 135, or M3 axles. So you're going to end up changing out the rear knuckle and the wheel bearing, and everything that you saw me do on my channel would all, most of it would be avoided if you had just started with a 135 in the first place. Especially a 135 that has the M Sport suspension already. They're really good, man. They ride really, really nice, especially for just like a street beater. It's really hard to beat that setup. So if you can afford an extra couple of $1,000s to find like a blown up or even like a okay condition, higher mileage 135, that would definitely be the recommended starting point. Now, if you've been doing your research on what kind of chassis to buy, you might see some differences between N51 equipped cars and N52 equipped cars. The N51 being the SULEV version, which is like a ultra high emissions standard vehicle. Up in here, the Pennsylvania region, we have mostly N51 cars. It's actually kind of rare to find an N52 car. But the differences all lie in the fuel system, and neither one of them is gonna make or break your build. The 1 Series that I had built was an N51 car, so it has a full metal fuel line, which I ended up cutting and using a compression fitting on, and it's been great for 6,500 miles or so far. The N52 equipped cars are a little bit easier. They have like a quick disconnect down on the driver's side frame rail, and that's super easily converted to an AN fitting to make your fuel line to go up to your LS or LT. So it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't, you know, like the fuel tanks are different in the cars as well. The N51 fuel tank is a little bit, it's for one, not serviceable on the driver's side. So it's all like a sealed system, and then the fuel pump is on the passenger side, and it's like a totally different setup. But the stock fuel pump has been totally fine for my cam only LS1. If you're making more power than that, an aftermarket pump will actually fit in the N51 fuel bucket really easily. So you could retain the stock system if you're just making a little bit more, or you could use it to supply a surge tank in the rear like a lot of other builds do. So again, I don't really think it's a make or break system. I think if you find the car for a right price, I'm not afraid of getting an N51 car. Interior specs. Now this is maybe a little bit bigger of a concern than some people might actually think. So many of these cars, 128s, 328s especially, 90% of them came with ugly beige interior. They look terrible. They wear like crap. If you can swing it and you find a better, or it's going to cost a little bit more to get a car with even just black interior, or if you really hold out and find an interior that actually looks really good, a brown interior, or maybe even oyster. I'm not a fan of oyster. Some people are. But I really would, because you're going to save yourself a lot of hassle for doing a full interior swap, because it really does make the car a lot more likable. So you can swap a car and it run really well, but if you get into it every time and the interior is ass, and you just don't like it, it really does make a big difference and kind of go a long way that you like the entire car. So I'd really try to hold out and find one that has an interior that you really like if you're kind of against full interior swaps. However, Facebook Marketplace, especially for the E90 crowd, full interiors are all over the place. Maybe not so much the carpets, and a lot of those beige cars came with beige carpets, but there are E90 interiors everywhere. So 1 Series not as common to come by, but you can definitely still do it. But I would recommend just getting a nice spec right off the bat. It's going to make you like the car a whole lot more. So all these things taken into consideration, let me give you a look at what the next swap project is going to be for the channel. All right, here we go. E91. This is a 2010 328xi Wagon. This is going to be the next project that we're going to be swapping here on the channel. It's going to be a little bit different of a swap this time, but something I think a lot of you guys are going to be interested in. It does have beige interior, so completely go against what I was just talking about. But when an X-Drive M Sport wagon shows up for the right deal, you got to pick it up. So I'll probably end up swapping the interior with another car at some point, even though E91 interiors are much harder to come by because they're much different than E90. But yeah, this wagon in particular has 190,000 miles. It's not in perfect shape, but it's in relatively good condition for the age and mileage. A couple of dings and dents and scratches and nicks and stuff, but overall this is going to be a really good starting point for our swap. This kind of gives me, or leads me into the next thing that we're going to talk about with these swaps too, is picking a rear-wheel drive car or an X-drive car. You could save yourself so much hassle finding a rear-wheel drive car. I highly recommend that you find one, but in the case that you can't, like this, and like in the instance of this car being an X-drive wagon, which the majority of them are, especially here in the Northeast, I am going to go over the full process about what it takes to convert the car to rear-wheel drive, like a true rear-wheel drive swap. So we're going to be swapping in a rear-wheel drive front subframe, which it actually already has, but we're going to go over that. I was lucky enough to find this car from a fellow YouTuber and really good guy, Jacob Hipp, who has already started the conversion on this car. So it already has the full rear-wheel drive front subframe and rack installed, and the front suspension as well. When I picked this car up from him, he was kind enough to give me a rear-wheel drive DSC unit that we're going to swap, and that requires swapping the brake lines as well. So we're going to go over all of that in a couple of video series with this vehicle. We're going to convert the car over to true rear-wheel drive, and then we're also going to V8 swap it as well. This is kind of a funny looking LS, but this is a LT1, a Gen V LT1 out of a Camaro. I'm not sure exactly what year it is. It does have a 3-wire fuel pressure, rail pressure sensor here, so leads me to believe that it's a 2017 or newer, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go over everything that it's going to take to be able to get this engine into this car and get it functioning properly. We're going to be using a factory GM ECU, which I'm actually really excited about because I think it's going to make drivability and function really, really smooth. So you guys are just going to have to give me a little bit of time with this one. I am expecting my first child here in the next couple of weeks, so there's going to be a few months downtime in between, and garage time is, going to start to become a little bit sparse. So I'm fine with it, but we're going to try to get working on the car as much as possible. Maybe I might end up taking the car to work and working on it during work hours or something in between, jobs at work. So I'll keep you up to date, but there's going to be a couple of videos regarding this purple wagon here as well, this E30 Touring, that I'm just finishing up a complete restoration on. So we're going to go over a couple of videos for this E30 Touring here as well, and then we're going to jump right into the E91 LT1 swap. So I hope you guys are as excited about this swap as I am. I know the LT1 motors, or the LT series in general, are kind of becoming really popular and a lot more easy to get. So I think these are going to be kind of like the next wave of swaps, I think they're kind of the next stepping stone after all the LSs. So we'll get going on that swap, and I'll try to get everything video recorded. I want to do a really in-depth video series about how to get this thing in here and working flawlessly. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks.